My name is Lena Min Tran, and I'm 30 years old. If you'd walked into my townhouse 3 weeks ago, you might have called it quiet. Not the curated kind of quiet, the kind with brass candle snuffers and books opened halfway for photos, but the kind that just exists. A fan ticking in the kitchen, a pot pinging as it cools, shoes in a line by the door because I don't like bringing outside mess inside. It's not glamorous. It's mine. I'm a mechanical engineer in Denver. I bought this place 5 years ago after saving through roommates, bent forks, and Craigslist couches. When my dad died at 17, I learned a rule I don't unlearn. Stability isn't an aesthetic, it's a spine. My mom rebuilt on less than anyone thought possible. I grew up respecting fixed-rate mortgages and patched drywall more than spa weekends we couldn't afford. Mason arrived 8 months ago in soft light and louder ideas. 26, freelance lifestyle consultant, which meant ring lights, affiliate links, and brand mood boards taped to his wall with painter's tape. He had a way of touching little moments like they mattered. Asking a barista about the origin of their espresso, filming a sunbeam across the counter like it had a backstory. I think that's the first trap of charm. It convinces you you're seen, when what's really being seen is the light. In the beginning, I liked how our edges fit. I overplan. He improvises. I make spreadsheets for weekend hikes. He throws a blanket in the trunk and drives until the road runs out. We camped in Rocky Mountain National Park, made fun of tourist traps in Estes Park, and watched movies on my couch while I cooked pasta, and he told me my basil was giving rustic. He said it like a compliment. I took it like one. The comments started small. "Your Honda is so reliable," he said, fingers grazing the cracked steering wheel cover. "It's cute. Very wholesome." A week later, "Do we hand wash everything because we're doing like an intentional, mindful thing?" When I told him the previous owner never installed a dishwasher and I never saw the need for the expense, he laughed and said, "No, I respect it. Authentic is in." What I didn't catch was how authentic slowly started meaning embarrassing. The night I hosted coworkers, paper plates, pulled pork, a bowl of coleslaw I was more proud of than I should be. He apologized to his followers on a story before people arrived. "Lighting's cozy," he said, angling his phone toward my ceiling fixture. "We're doing a low-light dinner party. It's a vibe." A beat later, he DM'd someone, "Basement energy, LOL." I saw it over his shoulder while handing him a corkscrew. I didn't say anything. Shock makes you polite. The money was the same story told louder. New restaurants because we should review what's trending. Tickets for a show because live content converts. Weekend drives into boutique hotels because photos set the tone for Q3. It came out of my card because his brand was between partnerships. He said it in a tone like partnerships were a season, like monsoon or harvest. I make good money, but good has a context when you also pay a mortgage, insure a car, and like to sleep without wondering if your checking account is gasping. One Sunday, he asked if we could host an intimate creator dinner. 8 people, a tablescape, probably my coleslaw rebranded as farmhouse slaw. I said yes. I even ordered more chairs off Marketplace and touched up the scuff by the hallway with paint I'd labeled Hall 1. Then he said, "Actually, we should do it somewhere else. These walls eat light. It reads low." He didn't mean low like lighting. "We don't live here," I said, not unkind. I watched his face close like a room with the lights flicked off. "You know what I mean," he muttered. "It's not brand reflective. My audience expects a certain aesthetic. I curate a feeling, Lena. This feels small." It hit a place I keep mostly locked. The place that's 19 flavors of tired at the word small. Small, like the apartments my mom cleaned for other people. Small, like the quiet meals we ate because grief doesn't like noise. Small, like saying no to things so you can say yes to bills. That night, I did what I do when emotion threatens to run feral. I counted. I opened mint and bank statements and paper receipts I hadn't filed yet, and I wrote it all down. 6 months. $8,132.54. The number didn't gut me. The realization did, that I had become an ATM attached to a man who still believed love is measured by what someone can hand you across a white tablecloth. I removed my card from his rideshare. I took my card off his food delivery. I toggled off autofill on my browser like I was bleeding his name out of a vein. I didn't make a speech. I just stopped subsidizing the narrative. 2 days later at brunch, a place with plants and test tubes and hash browns, pretending to be elevated because they were cut into squares, he slid the bill over with that boyish grin he uses when he wants something wrapped in charm. Want to grab this? He asked softly, phone face down, but still glowing with notifications. Let's split it, I said. He blinked. You're punishing me for wanting better? I'm refusing to pay for being insulted. He leaned back, eyes wet with a kind of hurt that made me a little ashamed, like I'd kicked something innocent. Everyone invests in their partner, he said. Every us is built on someone believing first. You're saying you don't believe. I'm saying I believe in electricity and groceries and the thing I've been building since I was 17. If my life is small for your ambitions, maybe you need a bigger stage. He stared, bottom lip disappearing under his teeth. Then he stood. Fair enough, he said, echoing me with a different temperature. He took his tote, a canvas bag with a logo from a wellness brand he once almost worked with, and he left. What I expected, a cold front, a quiet, maybe a break that broke for good. What I didn't, an email from HR 2 days later with the subject line, Inquiry, Personal Conduct. The complaint was anonymous. The details were not. Financial control. Emotional manipulation. Retaliatory behavior when partner requested lifestyle improvements. We don't even work together. The investigation closed almost immediately for lack of standing. Still, I had to sit in a glass room while my manager asked if the HR meeting lasted 13 minutes, long enough for my palms to dampen and my throat to turn dry from saying the words personal matter too many times. By the time I left, my manager's tone had softened. Polite, sympathetic, but his eyes still flicked toward the glass wall as though this conversation had been a shadow he didn't want to follow him. That night, I lay awake replaying the email in my head, every word sheathed in accusation. Mason had always said he wanted transparency, that his brand was built on authenticity. I guess that included rewriting me as a villain when the narrative demanded drama. When I finally opened my phone, his latest post was already climbing in engagement. The caption read, "When your partner pretends to be successful but lives like your grandpa." The photo, my dining table, my dishes, my hand visible in the corner of the frame, blurred mid-motion. I stared until the screen dimmed, until I could see my reflection looking back, someone caught between humiliation and disbelief. That post hit 90,000 views by morning. At work, my inbox filled with soft versions of curiosity. Hey, you okay? You know you don't have to explain, right? A coworker forwarded a link to a Reddit thread analyzing Mason's video timeline. The internet was piecing together our lives like detectives addicted to dopamine. Someone had even posted my LinkedIn under a comment titled, "The Real Engineer." I told myself not to look. I looked anyway. There it was, people debating my salary, my wardrobe, my worth. A stranger wrote, "If she really makes 6 figures, why does her house look like an Airbnb in Ohio?" The line made me laugh in a soundless way that hurt more than crying. A week passed. Mason hadn't called, hadn't texted. The silence felt tactical, not peaceful. Then the first alert came. Unusual activity detected on your account. At first, I dismissed it. I assumed it was a gas charge or a delayed transaction from brunch. But the feeling stuck. The same low, metallic pulse that hums in your ribs when you sense someone watching you through a cracked door. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, I'd already changed passwords, revoked his access, shut every digital door I could think of. Still, that alert lingered at the edge of my mind like a flickering light bulb. My mom called that night. She has this instinct, like mothers who can smell rain before it hits. "Con Guy, are you eating?" she asked in Vietnamese, her tone somewhere between concern and command. "Trying to," I said. "Trying means no." She sighed. "I told you, these people who chase attention, they don't care if you break. They only care if you trend." I laughed because she wasn't wrong. "I know, Mom, I'm okay." "Then don't make yourself small," she said, her voice softening. "That boy wanted to live loud. You build quiet. That's strength, not shame." It's strange how someone's words can hold you together when the rest of your life is being dissected online. 2 days later, another notification popped up from my bank app. Large check withdrawal, $2,400 to Jacobs Media LLC. I frowned. I hadn't written a check in months. The last time I'd opened my checkbook was when I paid a handyman for fixing a cabinet hinge. I kept it in a desk drawer under some old tax papers. It shouldn't have moved. I called the bank. The representative transferred me to fraud. Her voice was calm, methodical. Ms. Tran, can you confirm the check number? When I did, she paused. The signature looks slightly off, she said. It's shaky, like someone tried to copy yours. We've already frozen the account. My stomach dropped. Copy mine? It took less than a minute for my brain to draw a straight line to Mason. All those nights he worked from my office, filming behind-the-scenes reels. He'd joked once that my handwriting looked bank official. I'd laughed. Now it didn't feel like a joke. I filed the police report that same afternoon. The officer taking notes looked tired, but kind. Anyone else have access to your checks, Mrs.? He asked. No, just me. Then I hesitated. Well, my ex. He stayed over a lot. Sometimes worked from here. He nodded slowly, scribbling. We'll have a detective reach out. By the time I got home, the air in the townhouse felt different. Still mine, but invaded. Like fingerprints on glass you thought was clean. I sat at my desk, staring at the empty space where the checkbook used to be, wondering how long betrayal lingers in the air after someone walks out the door. When the detective finally called 2 days later, his tone was businesslike. We've confirmed your suspicion, Ms. Tran. Prints on the checkbook match Mason Hale. He said it so casually I almost missed the meaning. We'll proceed with the report for attempted fraud. You'll be updated once charges are filed. My knees went weak, not from shock, but from a strange relief that I wasn't crazy. The story broke before the detective even finished his paperwork. A friend texted me a headline. Local TikTok influencer arrested for attempted check fraud. Below it, a mugshot. Mason's jaw set, his eyes furious, not afraid. The article didn't name me, but anyone who had followed his small life narrative connected the dots instantly. My phone buzzed nonstop. Coworkers, old classmates, even strangers DMing me with half-hearted apologies like, guess you weren't the villain after all. But I didn't feel vindicated, just empty. That night, I watched his apology video because self-preservation and curiosity often wear the same mask. He cried into the camera, said he made a mistake in a moment of desperation, said toxic women in STEM push men to the edge and then play victim. He called it a learning experience. The comments section turned into a bonfire. Some cheered his honesty, most tore him apart. By midnight, his brand partners were pulling out one after another. His follower count bled numbers in real time, 12,000, 11,900, 11,700. And I sat there, watching it all, feeling nothing but the quiet hum of my refrigerator and the faint echo of his voice saying, "This feels small." The morning after the article, I stood by the kitchen window, staring at the condensation sliding down the glass. Denver Light is honest. It doesn't soften anything. It shows you the streaks you missed when you tried to clean, the tiny scratches on your mug, the way your reflection looks when you stop pretending you're fine. My phone was still buzzing from messages. Most were the digital equivalent of rubbernecking. Hey, just saw the news. Or, can you believe it? A few came from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Mason had finally gone too far, and the internet had turned on him. But knowing I was right didn't feel like winning. It felt like walking away from a burning building that used to be your home. That afternoon, Detective Carver called. His voice was calm, almost apologetic. We found additional checks, Ms. Tran, he said. 3 smaller ones from the past month. Different names, same handwriting. My chest tightened. How much? About 800 total. We believe he was testing the waters before the larger amount. Testing the waters, I repeated quietly. Like it's an experiment. He hesitated. We'll be adding those to the file. You'll probably have to give another statement. When the call ended, I pressed the phone to my chest. I felt my heartbeat hammering through the plastic. The same hands that used to trace my jaw had also traced my signature. Over the next 2 weeks, I tried to move normally. I went to work, cooked dinner, watered the basil dying on my balcony. But it was like living beside static. Everything hummed with the memory of him, his voice on my answering machine, his jacket I still hadn't thrown away, his ghost on my For You page when someone stitched his mugshot for commentary content. One night, I walked into my office to file some papers and froze. The desk drawer, the one where my checkbook used to be, was still slightly ajar. I'd left it closed for days, almost superstitiously. When I pulled it open, I saw a faint fingerprint smudge on the handle. It was nothing, probably mine, but I felt a chill crawl up my spine anyway. That's the thing about violation. It rewires the way you look at stillness. The detective's updates came in fragments. Mason denied everything. He told them I'd framed him to punish him for leaving. But the evidence was clear. His fingerprints, his handwriting, and the fact that he'd used his own IP address to log into an account linked to one of the fake LLCs. They said the DA was likely to press charges. When the mugshot hit the news again, this time with a follow-up piece, my phone nearly overheated. The comments were vicious. He ruined his life over a check? Imagine calling her life small while committing check fraud. Soft life, hard consequences. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. For once, silence worked in my favor. Then came the live stream. Someone texted me, "You need to see this." Against every instinct, I opened it. Mason sat in his car, eyes red, camera shaking slightly. "I didn't do what they're saying," he said. "This is revenge. She made me believe in her, then humiliated me. Everything I did was for us. I was just trying to survive." He paused for effect. He'd always known how to perform sincerity. This is what happens when women with power use it to destroy men who don't fit their box. She'll move on like nothing happened, and I'll be left with nothing. He started to cry, or tried to. It looked practiced, a little offbeat, like he was waiting for the comments to catch up. And they did. Half of them tore him apart. The other half called me cold, calculating, career feminist. I closed the app. My hands were shaking. The detective called 2 days later. "He's out on bail," he said. I didn't even have time to process the words before the messages started coming. Unknown numbers, blocked accounts, voicemails that began with silence, then breathing. At 2:03 a.m., "You could have just upgraded your car and none of this would have happened." At 4:11 a.m., "I loved you enough to believe in your boring life. You should have loved me enough to make it bigger." By morning, there were 5 new numbers. I screenshotted everything, sent them to Detective Carver. He replied, "Keep documenting, don't engage. We're building a case for harassment." I wanted to reply, "He already built it. I'm just living in the ruins." A few days later, my boss knocked on my office door. "There was a phone call earlier," he said gently, "from someone claiming to be your ex's mother." I froze. "She said you're destroying her son's life." I hung up, but maybe you should talk to HR again. He paused. "Are you safe, Lena?" I wanted to say yes, but I didn't know what that meant anymore. The final straw came the following week. Another email from my bank. "We detected a mortgage application in your name." The employer listed was correct. The salary matched. Even my social security number was there, but the contact number, the one the lender was supposed to call, was his. That's when the fear stopped being abstract. It wasn't about humiliation anymore. It was about theft of my name, my safety, my ability to exist without being rewritten. The detective said it plainly this time. "He's escalating. We're filing for a restraining order immediately." I signed the papers that same afternoon. No contact. 500 feet minimum. Zero communication. That night I lay in bed, unable to sleep. I thought about the first time Mason had ever stayed over. He'd watched me brush my teeth and said, "You even make the mundane look cinematic." At the time it felt like a compliment. Now it sounded like foreshadowing, the way you romanticize something right before you ruin it. The restraining order was granted on a Thursday morning. The judge's voice was steady, almost bored, like he'd said these same words 100 times before. 500 feet, no direct or third-party contact. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. He didn't look at me when he said it, and I didn't blame him. I wasn't special, just another woman whose peace had become someone else's obsession. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt that strange, hollow kind of safety, like locking a door when the person you fear already knows where the spare key is hidden. For the first few days, nothing happened. No calls, no texts, no strange cars parked outside my house. I started to believe maybe he'd finally let go. I even slept through the night once, dreamless, heavy sleep that felt like being underwater, far from noise. Then the messages started again. New numbers, different area codes, same voice disguised in punctuation and desperation. "You ruined my life. My mom says you owe me an apology. A real woman would have fixed this privately. You think you're safe because of paper? You're not. I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to Detective Carver, who replied with the same calm detachment he always had. Keep them. Each one helps. A week later, I got a call from the front desk at work. Lena, my coworker whispered, someone's asking for you. She sounds upset. My chest tightened. Who? She wouldn't say. She just keeps saying your full name over and over. I walked down the hallway slowly, every step louder than it should have been. The moment I turned the corner, I saw her. A woman in her late 50s. Sharp eyes, a fury that felt familiar. Mason's mother. She pointed at me before I could speak. You ruined my son, she spat. You embarrassed him. You dragged him through court like some criminal. Ma'am, please lower your voice. Don't ma'am me. He loved you. He was trying to build something, and you destroyed him because you couldn't stand not being in control. Every word hit like a slap. I stood there, hands trembling, trying to hold my voice steady. I think you should leave. She stepped closer. He told me everything. You used him, then turned him into content. The irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I said nothing. Security came and escorted her out while she screamed that I'd pay for what I'd done. After she was gone, my boss walked over. Do you want to go home? He asked softly. I nodded. At my desk, I stared at the restraining order lying beside my keyboard. It hadn't said anything about his mother. That evening, I got another call, this time from my bank's fraud department. Someone had tried to open a mortgage application in my name. Same employer, same salary, my social security number. But the contact number? His. The representative's voice trembled slightly when she said, We've already flagged and frozen it, Ms. Tran. You should contact law enforcement immediately. I didn't cry. I didn't even speak for a few seconds. I just sat on the couch, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the spot on the floor where he once set up his tripod. He'd always said, angles change everything. Now he was proving it. Detective Carver sounded exhausted when I called. He's violating the order, no question, he said. We're building a stronger case, but Lena, I need you to be careful. He's escalating. If you see him anywhere, don't engage. Call us immediately. I asked, what does careful mean when someone already knows every password I've ever used? He sighed. It means you change your locks, you stay aware, and you keep trusting that paper. It's thin, but it's still a wall. 3 days later, it happened. I was under a car at the shop. Oil slick hands, the hum of diagnostics, the normalcy I'd been craving. Then a coworker poked his head under the lift. Lena, someone's asking for you up front. His face said more than his words. She's recording. My stomach dropped. I wiped my hands, heart pounding, and walked to the front desk. There he was, Mason, standing in the middle of the waiting area with his phone raised, camera already rolling. The moment he saw me, he started shouting, You're a coward, hiding behind lawyers, pretending you're the victim. Every head in the shop turned. Customers froze. My boss stepped out from his office, eyebrows knitting in disbelief. I took a slow breath and pulled out my own phone. If he wanted a recording, he'd get one. He jabbed a finger at me. You ruined my life. You owe me for everything you cost me. My career, my reputation, my future. You think your little order means anything? He took a step forward. My coworker moved between us. Sir, you need to leave, my boss said firmly. Mason ignored him. You think you won? You destroyed me over nothing. Call the police, I said quietly. When the officers arrived, Mason was still yelling, still filming. I handed them my phone with the video still recording. He was arrested on the spot for violating the restraining order. Watching him in handcuffs should have felt like relief. It didn't. It felt like nausea and pity tangled together. He kept shouting as they pulled him toward the door. You did this. You'll regret it. And for a moment, I believed he was right. Not because I feared him, but because I realized that even winning felt like losing something I'd never get back. The sense that my life was simple, quiet, mine. That night, my lawyer called. He said Mason's second arrest would change everything. The prosecutor's taking it seriously now, he explained. This isn't just fraud anymore. It's stalking and harassment. He paused. How do you feel? I stared at the silent living room, the lamp casting soft shadows on my walls, the same walls he once called bad lighting. I feel, I said slowly, like I'm finally starting to understand what peace costs. It took 6 months for the case to reach sentencing. 6 months of forms, phone calls, and silence that felt louder than any shouting match we'd ever had. When the prosecutor finally called, I was at my new place, boxes half unpacked, my coffee machine already earning its corner on the counter. "Ms. Tran," he said. He took the plea deal. Those words landed softer than I expected, almost kind. He explained that Mason pled guilty to check fraud, identity theft, and violating a restraining order. 18 months of probation, full restitution, community service, mandatory therapy. And the one that mattered most to me, no contact for the duration of his probation. Any violation, and he goes to jail. I didn't say anything at first. I just listened to the sound of my new home breathing around me, the gentle creak of settling wood, the faint hum of the refrigerator. He asked if I wanted to attend the sentencing hearing. I told him no. I'd already watched Mason perform enough times. I didn't need another show. Denver had become a city of ghosts, so I left. I sold my townhouse, packed what mattered, tools, books, and a few pieces of furniture that still felt like mine, and drove north until the mountains started to thin into softer hills. Now I live in Oregon, in a small house with a bigger yard. It's quieter here, less performance, more air. My new job is similar. Mechanical engineering at a smaller firm, fewer people, fewer politics. I spend weekends rebuilding things that don't talk back. Old radios, a vintage motorbike, the garden fence that came half collapsed. Sometimes, when I hear the wind slip under the door, I still flinch, the body remembering what the mind is trying to forget. But the fear fades faster now. A few weeks after the move, I met someone. His name is Lauren Park, 29, an interior designer for a small firm downtown. We met the kind of way real life happens. No algorithm, no performance, just timing. I was at a coffee shop reading a repair manual for vintage bikes. He asked if I actually understood it, or if it was for aesthetic. I laughed and told him I did both. We talked for an hour about tools, lighting, and the art of fixing things instead of replacing them. We've seen each other a few times since. Nothing heavy, just simple. Dinner where we split the check without talking about it. Walks along the river. Movie nights where he actually watches the movie. When he came to my house for the first time, he paused by the shelves in the living room, the ones I built myself, my proudest project. He ran his hand along the wood grain. "You did this?" "Yeah," I said, a little shy. "It's beautiful," he said simply. "Feels like it belongs." Something about that sentence sank into me. Feels like it belongs. No performance, no approval to earn, just presence. One evening, we were sitting on the porch, the sky turning the color of rust and honey. Lauren asked, "Do you ever think about him?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not like before." He nodded, waiting. I used to think if I understood why he did what he did, I could stop it from mattering. But people don't always have reasons you can translate. Sometimes they just break what they can't become. He didn't try to fix my answer. He just sat with it. Later that night, I found myself scrolling through old photos. Not of him, but of the life before him. The one he'd called small. The cracked Honda steering wheel. The kitchen sink without a dishwasher. The house that didn't make sense on Instagram, but made sense to me. And for the first time, I saw it differently. My life hadn't been small. It had been solid. Something he couldn't measure because it didn't sparkle in pixels. Mason's TikTok account is gone now. Wiped clean except for a final video titled "Starting Over." The comments are turned off. I didn't watch it. I don't need to. Some stories end with fire. Others just stop being told. These days, mornings start slow. I wake up before the alarm, brew coffee, step outside barefoot just to feel the cold ground. The air here smells like cedar and rain. There's no one filming it, no one measuring how it looks, just me. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough.